Where are we in this NIL era for college basketball, and how is it affecting how we prepare guys stateside for the professional leagues?
It's a big question. I'm not sure that I have all the right answers as it relates to the question. I would start by looking at it from two different perspectives. I think from the NIL era, specifically from a fan perspective, I don't think it's been great for the game of college basketball. I am all for cats getting paid. I remember when I would run out of like whatever the point system was at Boston University on my card, where they give you this
little meal card,
little bit of money, and I'd run out, and none of the cafeterias would be open, and you're literally starving. Like I didn't have no money, so I always thought that was crazy. I'm all for people getting paid, but what it's done for the fan is the 12-year-old me that loved, North Carolina basketball and knew Logan Murdoch when he came in as a freshman and watched him go through his, struggling year where he got on the court once in a while to now he's a junior and he's one of our best players. Like, those days are done. So the warm and fuzzies that you get with the program, because you grew with the people and you've known them for years and you've watched them on their journey, like, that doesn't exist in the same way.
Yeah.
So like I couldn't tell you more than 10 names in college basketball right now. Like, that's hard for me. And I'm aware of the teams. I've seen some of them play, but I just don't have that same attachment to the programs. Now, some of it's that I'm a pro, but I imagine that, that's the same way for my sons and younger people out there. So that's difficult. From a coaching perspective, I've talked to a few coaches, right? Like, a couple weeks ago, I came on and gave you my real one of the week. It was my young nephew from Colonia, New Jersey, who was player of the year. So he's in the portal now. And
okay.
His portal's blown up. Like, he's got like some really cool opportunities in front of him now. And because I'm so close, I've been in some conversations with some coaches in regards to him, right? And so hearing them talk about what NIL has done to their ability to develop kids, not specifically for the NBA, Logan, but develop them in the way that they'd like them to be developed so they could be contributors to a program ultimately. Mm-hmm. And it's not just an individual thing with the college coach. Like, you're developing a class. I came in with two other guys. We were the class. We were supposed to be the face of Boston University basketball, or FIU basketball, as we got older. And so never knowing when one of those things is going to get pulled away from your program, especially if you're at the FIUs and the Boston universities and you have a good play, you really have no chance of retaining them. Like, they're gone. Yeah. You're like a JUCO in some regards. Like, it's tough because they play great basketball. Those coaches, the dude, Joe Gallo at Merrimack, is a stud. Like, he'll coach with the best in the country. And I mean that. I've watched him. I've been in his practices. But they just don't have the resources to keep the kids. They're not playing on the platforms, and the money and the opportunities with facilities and things like that are just too great in other places. So it becomes very difficult from a coaching perspective to really develop what you'd like to do, to have a plan in place.
And it's tough also with when you're talking about that and building on that point. It's also tough when, like, and I'm going to preface this by saying I am hella juiced that the players are getting paid and also have some level of power in this, right? Like, that they can, make the money that they make. Also, we both know this. There's a lot of like bad situations in college where the players are getting messed up over, and they want to leave, and it's hard for them to leave, especially back in the day when it was the 1 year rule where you would have to sit out a year if you transferred. That's just tough on everyone. But how much of it is now where there are some things where complaints from coaches where as soon as he or she or they try to maybe get on a player or maybe just tell the player this is what it is, the player's like, I'm out. I'm going to the transfer portal, and they have that power, but also it's like, are they going to get the other side of it where they're going to get the discipline that is required to be on the stage? Because as a consequence, I was talking to Steve Kerr a couple months ago, and he made he said this just in regards to Kuminga. It's in the story. This is on the record where he was talking about how nowadays we are coaching sophomores, juniors, and seniors as players. And it's a different development and different type of pressure now in the NBA because these guys are moving around a lot. They're not sticking with a coach. And when you move around, you're not actually getting developed when as soon as you get critiqued, you're like, I'm peacing out. I'm out of here. I'm going to somewhere else that's a better situation. And that's not just a basketball thing. No, you see that on the football side as well. Yeah. How do you find a balance between, the power and also this probably is good for me. And you have a coach that may be at a mid-major, but I want the greener pastures. I want these other things where at the end of the day, that might actually hurt you in the long run.
So it's a good question. Let me go back for a second and say that while it is very difficult, and I'm telling you that these people can't retain their players in some instances because of financials and so on and so forth. I support the movement. I was the beneficiary of being able to move. Now, I did have to sit the year, but I would never sit here and tell you there needs to be a system in place where kids don't have opportunities and options, right? Like that, I would never sit here and do that. Let me get back to your question. It's where it's critical that you have people around you and a support system around you that has some perspective, that has, a level head on their shoulders, that isn't just telling a player, a kid, a young woman or a young man what they want to hear. It just becomes critical. Like, again, I've had these coaches talk to me about parents and their unrealistic expectations and how that seeps into a kid's ear. So at the first moment, a coach tells them it's not what they think it is or not what mommy and daddy told them it should be, that there is work to be done. It could be that one day, but you're not there yet. As soon as they hear that, their first instinct is to get up and bail, looking for someone that's going to do what mommy and daddy do, which is tell them, hey, no, you're good. You're already that guy. That's not helpful. So it's a very difficult thing. And I think, you see the younger generation of player come into the NBA, and the ones that are moldable and can get it. There's a faction that already get it. They're straight. They got a good head on their shoulders. Like they're fine. That's not who we're talking about. Then there's a group of people that may not fully get it. Some of them, if you indoctrinate them and put them in a system that promotes the right stuff, will eventually get it. You never know what line they're on. Some get it quicker than others, but eventually might get it. Those you see succeeding. The ones that don't get it they're chewed up and spit out by the league. Like they don't get it. They'll never figure that out. They'll never figure out that, the tough love is necessary at times. And it's okay for someone to maybe hurt your feelings, right? Like you're not going to hear everything you want to hear all the time. Let me just go back to me again. I went to Boston University. I played for Dennis Wolf, who was not the person who recruited me. I was 17 years old. I was a very young freshman. It was my first time away from home, and I was doing dumb shit. And Dennis Wolf was telling me that I was doing dumb shit. If I could have got up and left at that point, I might have left on my own accord. My dad probably would not have let me walk out of there just like that. But the fact that I stayed another year listening to Dennis Wolf, it didn't sink in for me right then. It did not. But I've told Dennis Wolf this since then. Like I left after the next year, and so much of what he was trying to get me to understand, even if I wasn't ready to understand it, stuck with me and lasted, and eventually it sunk in, right? And eventually I got
Did you transfer because you was hard-headed, or did you transfer because of what was the reason behind that?
I transferred over multiple things, right? I was up there not doing what I should have done academically or even in the space of just being the person all the way around that I should have been. But I thought that there was more out there for me in terms of having the ball in my hands. He was recruiting his kids, and the complexion of the team looked like one where I wasn't I wasn't going to be as focal a point in it as I thought I might have been when I was recruited by someone else. And so when you put all that stuff together, we made a decision to leave there. But I'm sitting here telling you now, as much as I had a distaste in my mouth for Dennis Wolf when I left there, he's a huge part of who I became.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you got to tell young kids hard things to listen to from their perspective because it's what they need to hear. You know, you're 40 some years old. You got perspective. I did not.